in 3 counts starts now.
What up? No, it is another Tuesday. This is Knockouts in 3 counts. I am Kyle. Corey is with me as well. J-Bone is on assignment today, but we are going to be joined here in a little bit by our guy, James Lynch, one of the best minds in the world of MMA. We're going to talk about UFC on Paramount. We're going to talk about UFC 324. We are also going to talk about what he's got going on at Cagee Titans, which any of you guys that have been following us for a while, which if you guys are new here, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so that you can stay up with everything Knockouts and 3 counts. But we have quite the history with Cagee Titans, from our friend Joe Penafiel to Jojo Giannetti, to the fight that we almost started between Jojo Giannetti and our guy Darius Estelle at the weigh-ins. So we are big fans of our friends over at Cagee Titans. We're going to get into that and some of the interviews that our guy James Lynch is going to be doing down there. Corey, how the fuck are you on a Tuesday?
Old lady's fighting off a sickness. I feel like maybe it's getting its fingers on me. So just trying to make it through, man. Cold season over here, you know.
Gotta love it, dude. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Before we get to James Lynch, man, you know, there's some things that we got to talk about in the world of pro wrestling. It's crazy to say that we are just under 2 weeks out from the Royal Rumble, which that sounds crazy to say because it just doesn't seem like it has the normal hype that it normally would have with it being the Royal Rumble. I don't know if that's got to do with it being in Saudi. We're going to get to that in a minute. We also had TNA's debut on AMC. Shout out to our friends at TNA for sending us Ryan Nemeth and getting to chat with him. If you guys are new here, you can go back and check that out as well. He had a match on Genesis with Mara Sade. We've also got to talk about TNA Genesis, as we've got a new TNA champion in Mike Santana. AJ Styles was back there at Genesis as well. Elena Black, formerly Cora Jade in NXT, is now in TNA. Lots of good things to talk about there. For starters, okay. As I talked about, we got to talk with our friend Ryan Nemeth. Shout out to TNA for setting that up. I'm just glad to see TNA on a regular network again. They had their debut on AMC, much bigger network, obviously, than where they were on Access TV. From everything I've seen and the reports that I've seen so far, whether that be from us over here at Body Slam or other outlets, it seems like for the vast majority, it seems AMC seems to be real happy with the debut so far. As I talked about going into it, I think it was dope having Frankie Kazarian be your champion headed into that, as he's truly a TNA OG. And so I think there's no better representative that you could have maybe picked headed into that. And having a guy like AJ Styles, who's undoubtedly got to be like the Babe Ruth big star of TNA. I mean, I don't really know how else you can put it. When people talk TNA, AJ Styles is the name that comes out. We've heard AJ say that he's getting ready to retire in 2026. And I am just going to put this out in the universe. If we don't see TNA, AJ Styles matches in TNA, or in like a few of them, I feel like this won't be a proper. It won't be a proper last run for him. I feel like. I mean, that was where most people learned about AJ. That's why the reason he was able to get to go to New Japan and do everything he did with the Bullet Club. Like I said, really looking forward to seeing that. Cora Jade, or formerly Cora Jade, Elena Black, joining TNA. I think that's another good addition to the women's division when you consider that they lost Jordan Grace. They've lost multiple names over to WWE. You know, Joe Hendry's gone over there, but they're kind of replenishing their women's division of sorts. Ash by Elegance just went down due to injury and all those kind of things. So I think her coming in here, especially having a name, wrestling fans knowing who she is, I think she's going to be a great addition, in my opinion, to the TNA women's division. Anytime you can get somebody who's got some name power to them as well, especially with the relationship that TNA's got with NXT. So their crowd is going to be familiar with her, as she wrestled under the name Cora Jade as well in TNA under this partnership. So I think that's a big thing. And like I mentioned, we got a new champion, bro. We had a Texas death match between Mike Santana and Frankie Kazarian with past guest of the show, Ryan Nemeth's big brother, Nick Nemeth, as the referee, pulling his best Shawn Michaels and 98 get up with the referee get up, the short shorts, the sleeveless referee shirt. He was doing the deal. For any of you guys who are watching, let us know what you guys thought of TNA and TNA Genesis and your thoughts on them going to AMC and what we could see from them in the weeks to come. But Corey, that's one of the things that I talked about, that we talked about when TNA had the Big Bound for Glory show, and then they had the month off in between that, and then on the very first episode of that, Mike Santana loses the title. I'm not going to lie. I, for one, was in the camp of what the fuck? We had this whole build to him winning the championship, and then they go away for a month, and boom, shit, there goes the championship. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Again, I'm not mad that Frankie Kazarian got his shine, but man, Mike Santana has been on this ride of, they've been building him up to be the star that he is over there in TNA. Definitely had a resurgence as a singles guy over there in TNA, and then to lose the belt like that. But for him to win it back on the first debut episode on AMC, what arguably is probably going to be the most eyes that TNA's had on it, if not the most eyes they've had on them in quite a long time. I mean, not a much better place to crown him as a new champion. I'm kind of interested to see where we go. I'm just hoping for TNA's sake, dude, that like this being on a bigger network, having more eyes like AMC and things of that nature. I truly hope for the product that TNA is able to produce that this does exactly what they're hoping, and it puts, brings more eyes to the product, because I've sung the praises of TNA for a long time. We've had multiple guests from TNA, from Ryan Nemeth to Nick Nemeth to AJ Francis to Joe. We've talked with Joe Hendry before he left, who he was there at Genesis because Leon Slater and Danny Luna both kind of were out because of the world crisis with the visas and not able to get back into the States. So lots of crazy stuff, man. I mean, you got any thoughts on this debut on AMC and, where this can take them after this pay-per-view?
I'll start with the point I was going to make earlier, but didn't get a intermission to fit my words into. But for the Cora Jade, I didn't catch what you said her new name was, but
Elena Black, which is what she was going by when she was on the Indies before she went to WWE.
I just, obviously, anybody who's a regular watcher of the show knows that I'm not some diehard in wrestling. That's where you and Jordan are, the diehards. That being said, you guys were mentioning her name just like 2 years ago to be like that potential next person coming out of WWE, or at least I feel like that's what my memory of her name was. And to see her now, I guess, remaking her debut onto not quite, it's definitely not the indie scene, but it's like the AAA baseball scene. I'm very curious to see, like you said earlier, now that they have a new TV contract and stuff, I feel like there's so much room for growth when you get that type of, scenario. Obviously, I haven't seen the actual event or anything like that, but whenever you have the opportunity, and like you said, you're going to kind of bring in a new audience immediately, or at least garner the attention of old fans by that, new TV broadcast deal. They know the event's going to be one of the best that they can put on. And from what it sounds like, it lived up to expectations, if not exceeded.
I mean, I for one wasn't expecting her to come back to TNA. I mean, she definitely was somebody who I thought had quite the future in NXT, and then we seen her depart NXT. I've been a fan of her since she was Elena Black originally. I saw her in GCW multiple times before she got to TNA, and I would definitely say, in reference to your point, I definitely wouldn't call TNA like AAA baseball at this point, because they're rivaling. I mean, number one, the partnership with WWE, and on top of that, you're also getting. I mean, look, we love AEW, and shout out to AEW for having us, but let's be honest. I mean, now that TNA is on a bigger network and has, the partnership with WWE, they very well could become the number two. Depending on how the cards are played out and how things go, as we talked about on this year's version of the Knockouts, I think AEW had a much better year. But it's unarguable to be able to not point out the obvious that they don't have as many fans there as they've had previously. I mean, they were selling out 15,000 seat arenas every week for Dynamite, and that's been rescaled to a point. But again, I thought AEW had a great year, but I think, in my opinion, this kind of leaves the landscape open to, at least between those two, to really see who's going to solidify themselves as number two. Who's going to be the legit number two? Because now both are on major networks. We already know the jam-packed roster that AEW has. TNA, as I've said for years, their women's division has been one of the cornerstones for it. I think Mike Santana is a great champion. As I said, I was shocked when he lost the belt like that after Bound for Glory. So, with guys like Joe Hendry and things like that moving over to NXT and now to the main roster, I mean, I don't think there's a better guy in TNA to kind of fly that flag. I think it was dope to see Frankie Kazarian, be the first guy, as you go into this big chapter for TNA. But I'm genuinely excited to see what we get. I like that we see a kind of updated look. I like the video ramp that they had on AMC. I thought Genesis was a really good show as well, man. I mean, you had, you always hear the saying, card subject change. Obviously, Leon Slater was supposed to be there and involved, but, he couldn't get back into the States because of visa stuff. Same with Danny Luna. But then again, because of that, we got a new women's world championship match. And then, Joe Hendry, showed up in that match. And because of that, Leon Slater got to wrestle for WWE in England on SmackDown on Friday. So, like I said, this is why, in my opinion, the NXT or WWE partnership with TNA is such a good thing, because it's going to open, new guys to new audiences, put, open more fans' eyes to people that maybe they don't see every week because they don't watch TNA every week. But I will say, bro, Leon Slater, I think could be next going to WWE, because, man, that guy is so fucking dope to watch. And with that swag that he's got and the British accent and all that stuff, bro, it's going to set him apart. He's going to be different. Like, I'm so entertained by Leon Slater. Like, to somebody who's not the biggest wrestling guy, Leon Slater is somebody I would tell you, watch this guy and tell me that you're not entertained. So like I said, Leon Slater, I can't say enough good things with that. I'm really excited to see that. And again, I really hope that we see some more from the phenomenal one, AJ Styles and TNA. I don't think it would be a last run for AJ without that. While we wait for James Lynch to join us and we talk all things MMA, UFC, all those things, the Royal Rumble is coming up in 2 weeks. We've got Saturday night's main event is going to be this weekend in Canada. And then next weekend, man, it's time for the Royal Rumble. It's going to be in Saudi. It's in the middle of the day at 2:00. I don't know how I feel about that. The Royal Rumble, like I've talked about before, has always been one of my favorite pay-per-views of the year. I don't think we're going to be doing a watch party for this one with it being as early as it is. But dude, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird just in terms of like I said, the Royal Rumble really is kind of like the kickstart to WrestleMania season. And it just doesn't seem to have the same hype on it that it typically would. I don't know if that's because it's in Saudi, like I don't know if that's because it's in Saudi and it's early in the day. I don't know if it's because of the build, but it just doesn't seem to have the same heat on it. How do you think them? I mean, we already know they've announced that WrestleMania is going to be in Saudi next year. How do you think the reaction is going to be with the Royal Rumble, which is arguably the second biggest show of the year, being over there in Saudi?
Well, I mean, as a casual fan, right? Very, 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 very casual. It's the only one consistently throughout the years that I've been watching. I mean, because of the, watch along parties with friends and stuff, So when you talk about the magnitude of the event and stuff, it definitely is, whether it's second or not, it's definitely a big event. There's no argument there. And for them to take it over to, it seems like it's worked out very successfully for pretty much every sport that's made this transition now. But that being said, it's still definitely murky waters when it comes to the perspective of fans and stuff like that. And especially when you're talking about an event of that magnitude where people try to make, travel plans and stuff like that for it every year. That being said, I think it's really kind of one of those, we'll see how it plays out once the event comes, but it's really going to screw with a lot of things. Like I said, are we still going to have some type of watch along event where we get all the boys together and the belts are on the line and we're all throwing money in? And I don't know, because is everybody going to be off work by 5:00 or whatever, when 3:00 or whatever, when they're running the show
on Saturday not. I feel like we will be. It's good. That part's not going to change. Now the start time will be, but
I don't know if that's not going to change. I feel like for a lot of people that can't just say to their boss, I'm not going to be there on Saturday. It's a totally different thing than the crowd that you can get at 6:30, 7:00 at night is all I'm trying to say. But it's definitely an interesting move. I don't know if that's what's hurting the whole publicity and, just general like aura around the event or whatever, but it's definitely not helping, I feel like.
And that's the thing, dude. Normally, again, the Royal Rumble is the kickstart to the road to WrestleMania. So everybody's usually really, I just feel like it. Now, again, WWE could come out on Friday and we could be talking totally different about, where we see things headed into the Royal Rumble. I will say, though, that with Drew McIntyre taking that belt off of Cody Rhodes in the 3 stages of hell match leading into the Royal Rumble, and Cody Rhodes has already declared that he's going to be in the Royal Rumble. The fact that they did a shakeup like that, Drew being the champion, which in my opinion is very well deserved, because I've said for years Drew's been money. I think since he's come back to WWE, he's been putting in solid work for a long time, and he never really get his just due when he won the championship the last time, because he won it right as we went into COVID at WrestleMania and all that stuff. So for him to win it overseas and in front of a pro, let's just say England, or he's from Scotland, but they really support
European
their own over
crowd,
there. Yeah. So for him to win that belt over there and do it in I mean, bro, a 3 stages of hell match isn't a short match. So to get one of those on like a live TV, like that means you're wrestling for a while. And to get that on network TV, that's dope in and of itself. I think it helps legitimize Drew as well in terms of you got so many more eyes that are going to see that with that being on live TV. Not that pay-per-views aren't where you want to do that, but there's more people that are watching that a lot of the time than what you're going to see with, the weekly show. So it's interesting because now you got to see where's that going to play out with not only Cody, but remember when Drew won the title, the reason why Drew won the title was because Jacob Fatu came in, beat the dog shit out of Drew, and then Cody, put his hand on Jacob's shoulder like he was trying to pull him off him, and then him and Cody got into it, and in the mist, Drew was able to crawl out of the cage and get the second fall and get him the title. So I don't think that we're going to see the end of Cody and our guy Jacob Fatu, especially after SmackDown, and he called him out there too. So we got to see how Jacob Fatu rolls into this. And, when you talk about...
One quick question I got for you, Kyle, before we, jump into changing subjects too much. Do you think they're going to pull out all the stops because of the fact maybe fans are complaining and stuff like that with the Royal Rumble aspect being in Saudi? Or do you think it's going to be a diminished product because maybe they're not willing to travel as many stars and stuff like that across the world?
I mean, at this point, at first I would have maybe said that, yeah, that's a possibility. At this point, I don't think it really is in terms of, like, think about when we started this and getting, like, one women's match on the card was hard to do because of the customs over there in Saudi. So for them to be able to have the full-on Royal Rumble over there where you're going to have 30 women in there, like, yes, you could have that to a degree. But I mean, a lot of the guys that were saying they didn't want to go to Saudi have since gone over there. So I don't know that that's as prominent of an issue as maybe it was, like when they first started going over there.
I don't even mean I don't want to go, not to interrupt, but I don't even mean like politically or anything like that. I'm talking just monetarily. You're talking flying over 4 or 5 plane worth of,
Oh, WWE
athlete.
Don't care about that. They got buku bucks, bro. Them and
Yeah,
TKO
but do they like spending it? TKO don't love spending money. What you talking about?
That might be something for us to talk about with James Lynch. Is it TKO or does Dana White not like spending money? But I mean, yes, your overhead could be more because you're bringing more people.
I mean, but that being said, it's all being compensated for having the event.
That's what I was gonna say. You can't tell me like the same as like we talk about with like Turkey Al-Sheikh and all that. If that was the case, you can't tell me that they wouldn't say it's okay, brother. We give you the Saudi money and it's all good.
We take care of it. You'll be set. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like that part I really don't think will be an issue just in terms of like even if it was something like that. Like remember, one of the things that's always talked about in these Saudi shows is that he really likes to book they like to book a lot of things they want to see. So ultimately they're going to want the biggest Royal Rumble that they can put together.
Yeah, that's true.
Over there, and especially with the matches that they're already announcing, like even though we just had this match, they're gonna run it back with Gunther and AJ Styles. And again, remember we're talking about his last run. Gunther said he wants AJ's career. So if AJ loses, his career is done. So I mean, who the fuck knows what we're gonna get out of some of these things? You'd like to think, when you talk about front runners for a Royal Rumble and things like that, Cody Rhodes obviously is a name that jumps right back out. Gunther says that he's going to be in the Royal Rumble, so that could be another one too. I don't know. We're going to talk about this some more when J-Bone joins us. James Lynch is going to be jumping in here in a second. We're going to talk about all things combat sports. We've also got Cagee Titans, which is going down with him as well. So we're going to get into all of those things. We've also got the Clarissa Shields press conference at the auto show. So you guys got to make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you see all of those things. And, while we're talking about things that you need to check out, man, you got to check out our homies over at Michigan Street Unlimited. That's right. The Autorama is coming, and they are bringing the fleet, as you can see here on the video. They got all kinds of different cars. Going to have 7 different cars in this year's Autorama, which is going down at the Huntington Place per usual. Shout out to our sponsor, Cody Caudill, for jumping in and always showing love to knock out some 3 counts. So if you guys are in the Michigan area and you guys are fans of cars, which I would assume that you might be, make sure you check out our sponsors, Michigan Street Unlimited. If you're at the Autorama, go check them out. Tell them you saw them on Knockouts and 3 Counts and tell them what up. And without any further ado, Corey, we've got our guy James Lynch is joining us. It's time to talk some combat sports. James.
Good, brother.
Good, my man.
Nothing much. Good to talk to you guys. Thanks for having me back on.
Hey, man, it's always our pleasure, brother. We were given our early picks here for what we think is going to happen with the Royal Rumble. We got the Royal Rumble about to go down in Saudi next weekend. And, it's funny with us talking about UFC and TKO and all these things. Now the WWE has kind of followed suit, and now we're seeing more of their stuff in Saudi. So it's going to be interesting to see what we get here in a couple weeks. I'll hit you with a quick one. You got to pick for the Rumble.
I don't. I got to look a little bit closer at this one. Didn't do my research before I hopped on here. Amateur move. I know because you guys talk some pro wrestling on here, but it won't be John Cena. There's my answer. It won't be John Cena.
That's because you can't see him.
Yeah, we won't see him. Yeah,
there we go.
Hey, man. All right. I know you had to at least see the clips out of that. You got any thoughts on Cena's last match and him retiring, man?
What a legacy. I really got in. I sort of got more of the scene. I love the Unreal series they're doing on Netflix. I do watch that. I think that's super cool. And for someone like myself who's, trying to cover MMA and watch, what I can and do everything else I got going on, it's great for me to kind of get the summary. And they do it in such a good. I wish the UFC would do something like this, honestly. I think it would be.
I think that would be dope.
For the casual fan, they kind of did something like that with that Fight Inc. show a couple years back, and then Dana was like, "No, we're not going to do that anymore." But that I think is perfect for me because you get like a summary of like what's going on over the couple months. You get to follow the fighters around. I love that. I think that's super cool. So just what a career for John Cena. I was hardcore wrestling prior to Cena getting in there. So for me, Cena was like right after when he came into pro wrestling. So because that was Attitude Era, that was my
us
era.
Too. That's fair. Yeah. I grew up in the Attitude Era, so I'm with you on that one, dude. It's funny you bring up the Unreal thing because they just dropped a new season of that on Tuesday. So I'm gonna have to check that out. And next week on the show, I will report back to you my thoughts on said season. But dude, we've got a lot to talk about in the world of combat sports. If you guys aren't following James Lynch, I don't know what you're doing. Make sure you're checking him out on YouTube and all those things. One of your recent videos that really stuck out to me, and it's a great place to start in the world of MMA and especially particularly in the world of the UFC. We're getting ready this weekend for UFC 324. It's going to be the first show on UFC's new deal with Paramount Plus. Talk to me about that. What are your thoughts about them switching over to Paramount Plus? Do you think this is going to be better for the UFC and MMA as a whole? And I know with you being in Canada, I've seen all the stuff with everybody having a harder time where we're finally getting to see like the WWE side of things in the UFC over here in the States. And you guys are still having some of the problems that we were having in the ESPN days.
Well, yeah, just to clarify the Canada thing, the issue that we have is that the Paramount deal is only for the United States, so it doesn't impact us over here. We're still a Sportsnet. They signed the Sportsnet deal back in 2024, so unfortunately, we still have to pay for the pay-per-views, which is a bummer, right? Like, imagine like riding first class on an airplane. They're like, no, you got to stay in economy a little bit longer. That's basically what they've done to us over here in Canada. But I bought all the pay-per-views anyways because for work I got to it's tax write-off, all that stuff. I want to make sure I got a nice stream, but yeah, as far as what's going to be different, we'll see. I mean, we're already seeing some stuff come out, right? We saw some of the interviews that they led into it. The UFC's got the new Paramount UFC channel on YouTube. They're doing the cool red background. We're seeing little changes here and there. I'm very curious to see on the production side of things how things will go, because I didn't notice that much of a difference between ESPN and Fox, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I thought the UFC still sort of calls the shots in terms of how they want the presentation to look, but I think you'll see little things kind of leading into to how they're doing stuff. And you know, I that's always fun. It's always good to see new things, but I don't think things are going to be drastically different. The only thing you can obviously say now is that Paramount covers a much larger audience because of the whole streaming side of things, right? Like, I looked at sort of the numbers. Paramount's going to be in a lot more streaming homes than ESPN was, so that will be better for the UFC. And you know, you mentioned the TKO relationship. We'll see maybe some crossover there. We'll see with that too. So, you know, change is good. I'm here for it, and you know, I think it's just something to look forward to.
I know one of the big things on my end, and I feel like it is getting brought up, but not quite to the level or extent that I feel like it should be. That hour that they're shaving back that start time for all these numbered events, that's going to be so nice for us over here on the East Coast. I mean, you know, we're not East Coast in the Detroit area by any means, but we're still in the time zone. Yeah. And if anything, we're the furthest west point of the Eastern time zone. So we get, you know, the real brown end of the stick, if you know what I'm saying, when it comes to that. And yeah, sometimes these events don't wrap up till 1:30, and I, you know, got to try to drive home. It's bar o'clock by then. I'm trying not to, you know, be out there with all the drunks and stuff. It's, you know, it becomes this whole thing where now they shave that hour off. I don't feel bad going and hanging out at my buddy's house to go watch the fights. I don't feel bad, you know, maybe going out to a bar or, you know, Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever. And I also wonder, with them being on the streaming service, is that going to impact bars and stuff like that being able to show the fights where they no longer have to pay this huge pay-per-view tax essentially to be able to host the events at their, you know, restaurant or whatever it be?
Yeah,
I think
that's a great question. I didn't even think of that, actually. That's a great point, because you're right. Like, that was something they used to go after bars for. Remember, the odd bar would like not pay the fee and they'd stream it, and then Dana would like come after them or whatever, right? That was always a thing back in the day. So you're right. Like, because yeah, it's whatever the subscription fee is. It would be no different than like paying for NFL Sunday Ticket or something and watching a game, right? I would think, right? It shouldn't be anything extra than that, right?
And I'm sure a lot of them would already probably have that, because if you're talking sports bars and stuff like that, they are, you know, they need the Paramount deal for the NFL. So, I mean, I think it could open up a lot of avenues that way, let alone the time thing. I think the time thing, especially for somebody like myself, father of two, man, it, you know, it makes it hard on that Sunday to be able to do anything, you know, and I think it'll open it up for a lot of fans like myself.
I couldn't imagine being on that time, because I lived in Toronto for 10 years. I only had one kid back then. I have two now. I couldn't imagine doing what you do, staying up late and watching at that time zone. It's brutal. Even here, I've become a bit of a baby where it's like, you know, like you want it to end a little bit earlier, like I'm in Vancouver now. So, you know, 3 hours difference, but it does make a big difference. It's so much better watching sports on the West Coast than the East Coast, like 100%. So take off the hour. You know, John Anik came out this week and is like, it would be great if they shorten the cards. Yes, let's do that too. Let's try and make this like more quality and less quantity. You know, I do feel like that's one area the UFC, in my opinion, has really lost a lot of fans, is doing a lot of events and not like, we had this whole month off. Wouldn't it have been nice to have like maybe one event a couple weeks ago and then give us a little bit of a break and then get into this one? Like, we got 324 this weekend. We got 325 next weekend. That seems a little pushed together, in my opinion. You know, it would be nice to get a little bit of separation between those, because I think it's just fight night cards up until 326, which is, you know, a ways away, right?
Yeah. Another thing for me, I think there's so many aspects. You brought up like the production, right? Like the production, I feel like they've been doing a lot of things with adding, like, for instance, the brought to you by DraftKings or whatever, and it's the round clock thing, you know, where the cameraman stands. They've been doing a lot of small things like that, but I think it's time for like a small refresh, you know, like where the, you know, like maybe not necessarily the actual UFC logo, but logos around, maybe gloves and colors, and just, you know, brighten up the product a little bit and add that new flair to it.
I agree.
Also, I feel like whenever you're I'm really curious to see what the expectation of Paramount is when you're talking the amount of money that's been thrown around in this deal, essentially double, almost triple what their prior deal with ESPN was. Is there any expectation, like you were saying, of these events that need to be of a little higher quality? Is that something that, like you say, with like John Anik said, shaving down the cards a little bit so that way we can get more of a focus on some of these top level athletes, cut some of the fat essentially off of the UFC roster and, see where we end up. Not necessarily a terrible idea there either, but for me, it's just, I wonder, because of the way that the streaming service is set up through Paramount, it's not like ESPN was, where they're trying to fill a time slot to the same degree. I wonder if there's going to be less dead air, where maybe more fights isn't as bad because there isn't this, we have to break down the main event 4 times over throughout the card to, hype fans up for something they're already tuned into. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff like that can change based upon the new TV deal.
I hope so, and I agree with you. I think a lot of that is a waste of time. The other thing, though, is obviously you got commercial time too, so that's going to impact. If they're not doing pay-per-view, I'm imagining there's still going to be commercials in between everything else. That's something you didn't have on the pay-per-view. So if anything, that could be even tougher time-wise, because you got to fit these commercials in, and then you got to do everything else. So I don't know. Like, I'm really curious to see how this all goes this weekend. I think it'll be a good test. I'm certainly hopeful that things will get better, but you never know. We'll see. We'll see once it's all set and done after this weekend.
So, James, talk to me, as we look at UFC 324, as anybody that follows this show knows, I'm a big Justin Gaethje fan, so anytime he's fighting is always a good time for me. But what are your thoughts on the overall card that we're getting here at UFC 324 for this being the inaugural, voyage out here for the UFC on Paramount Plus?
It's a good card. It's not a great card. I think that's the best way I can kind of put it here. I mean, let's go all the way back to the first Fox card. You guys remember the main event for that? Cain Velasquez Jr. dos Santos for the heavyweight title.
I remember the fight. Now that you say that, I do.
Better than that, right? The second card, I think the first ESPN card they did was Francis Ngannou and Cain Velasquez, and obviously that fight ended really quickly. And Cain really didn't look like his old self, but back then that was a huge fight. I just don't get that sense with this card. Now, look, they wanted Topuria and Pimblett. That was the fight they wanted, right? And then obviously this stuff happened with Topuria and his personal life and all that. So that would have been that mega fight. But I just feel like, it's like you can't complain about the card, but also like if this is supposed to be like a historic event, not really getting that vibe from this event either. And I think this is also, and this is something I said back in November, like look how stacked that New York card was that they had with like Islam and JDM, and they had like Prates on the card. Like they had a lot of big names on that card. When you do a card that stacked back in November, it doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room for January. In fact, they wanted Islam on this card, and he's like, no, I just fought in November. Like, let's space this out a little bit. So you're going to see that happen more often. Not to get too far ahead here, but Dana, I heard this week, is talking about making the White House card. Like they're talking about putting, I don't know, title fights in every division on that card. Let's say they even did that and pulled that off, which I don't think they will. What's the rest of the calendar year going to look like if you're stacking one card, and then the rest of these cards that they have to do every week, how are those going to look? Like
lots of BMF notes.
Yeah, lots of like lackluster, Apex or Meta, whatever they're calling it now, cards that frankly a lot of us are going to be like, you know what, I'll record that and watch it the next day. Like that's what we're going to get. So yeah, I think this card, I'll watch it. It's going to be great. But I just I don't think it's going to go down as like an all-time card personally.
For me, I was really looking forward to the Kayla versus Amanda fight.
That too.
I feel like that was a big, that was a big hurt to the card for sure. Because when you talk about like the historical aspect and stuff, I feel like that's what was giving it that flavor. The Patty and Gaethje fight was just kind of like a cherry on top. Like we know this one's going to deliver, so here you go. Yeah. Totally. Ultimately. When you break down the rest of the card, though, like you were saying, I do feel like they tried to pull some strings for sure, but I feel like they were so headstrong in the top two, main and co-main, that once the co-main kind of fell out, it ultimately hurt the card pretty hard.
Yeah, I think so. And but how crazy is that though? Now, like they have more fighters than ever. They have so many more options, but yet because they do so many cards, they pin themselves into these corners. Like all of a sudden Taporia can't fight, and it's like, we got to do an interim fight. Like, you know what I mean? Like this always happens with them. Like I'll even go back to an example earlier last year. Like, so Yuri Prohaska gets this amazing comeback win over Khalil Roundtree, right? Like he absolutely should be getting a title shot next, but because a decision the UFC made a year before, which is like, we need a main event for 303. Let's put Yuri back in there with Pereira a couple months after he lost. He's now got 2 losses to Pereira. You can't give him the title shot now. So this is where like they shoot themselves in the foot sometimes because they end up scrambling and they have such short-term thinking sometimes with putting cards together that they pin themselves into this corner. Like Taporia, remember years ago when we used to watch, you'd have a big fight out, no problem. We got someone we can put together, some big fight, but you don't get that anymore. Like even this fight with Nunes and Harrison, like in the past, a big fight like this, they would have replaced it with some other fight, but they can't even do that now because guess what? They've already started planning for the next 4 months, and if they pull one here, you lose something on the other card, right? Like they just don't. They do too much short-term thinking, I think, a lot of times, and they don't plan ahead long-term, in my opinion.
Well, that kind of leads into something I wanted to bring up even with that. It's funny, we talked about obviously that we're the pro wrestling show too. It's interesting with the dropouts that they've had on this card. It's almost created more storylines to some of these fights. If you really think about it and like really dissect it, in a lot of ways, I feel like it's kind of almost added a little bit more intrigue in a sense when you think of like, okay, just going down the card. If you look at Gaethje and Patty, it's really, if you think about it, kind of a real similar situation to what you're getting with Sean O'Malley and Song Yadong as well, where you've got a guy in Justin Gaethje who, like I said, I love watching Justin Gaethje fight. He's a fan favorite. Patty is a guy who's on the way up, but in order for him to take that next step so that he can kind of, get to that superstar level pretty much, he's got to take out one of the big names, kind of like a pro wrestling thing, like what we talked about with John Cena. The same thing with Sean O'Malley. If Sean O'Malley, not any discredit to Song Yadong at all, because anyone that's watched him fight, he's great. But if Sean O'Malley loses to Song Yadong after what happened in the fight with Merab, and now Merab has lost the belt, that's going to be a big hit for Sean O'Malley. Like,
yeah.
I mean, because then what do? I mean, it doesn't mean that Sean O'Malley's not a big star, but then Sean O'Malley's going to have to go on at least a little string of wins to get himself kind of back, in that conversation is like the elite guy. And I feel like if you look all the way down, you could say the same thing with Derek Lewis versus Acosta. Acosta is the guy that's been knocking people out and goes in there and is winging big punches, kind of like Derek Lewis was doing for his whole career. And one of the things that's made Derek Lewis the star that he is, obviously, talking about how hot his balls are and things like might have helped. But, it's just interesting to me how, because of what you just said and some of these fights kind of dropping out, how it's kind of created this like storyline of sorts of like the old guard and the guys they want to come up, in a sense, to me.
Well, yeah, and just some of the matchmaking in general. I mean, a lot of people have been upset with how they've done some of these title fights, like Diego Lopez rematching Volk when they just fought less than a year ago, and Volk clearly won the fight. Stuff like that. The O'Malley thing, what's the fight that they should have made last year and they never did, and that would have been like smart on their end. Why did they never do Henry Cejudo and Sean O'Malley? That was a big missed opportunity.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
that would have been a good
Cejudo's
fight.
Speaking of passing of the guard, Cejudo's clearly on the way out. Yes, they gave him Peyton Talbot, and I guess they gave Talbot the shine by getting that win here. But that's an odd, that's a winnable fight for Sean O'Malley, in my opinion. Yes, Cejudo's got the wrestling, but Sean O'Malley's got the knockout power. I mean, I would have picked O'Malley in that spot just with the sheer power there. And then we got a fight with like Umar Nurmagomedov's on the prelims because they don't have anyone else for him to fight. So he's like a minus 1,600 favorite against Davis and Figueroa. And it's like, this is what I mean. Like, they just don't like, honestly, like some of the matchmaking, I wonder why they do some of the things that they do. Cause like Sean O'Malley, Song Yadong, O'Malley's probably going to win that fight, but like, you're right. If he doesn't, cause Song's one of these guys, there is still that unknown. He's younger than O'Malley. Like he could maybe surprise here and get a win. And I definitely think that fight's going the distance. There's some people convinced that O'Malley's going to knock him out. I don't know about that. It's a 3-round fight.
I don't know about that.
I see this fight being closer to like the Yan fight, what we saw a couple of years ago with Yan and O'Malley, where it ends up going the distance. So this is what I mean. Like the UFC makes these fights sometimes, and it's like, things could blow up in their face. So we'll see how it all pans out. But yeah, some of the matchmaking lately, it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, to me, you should never have a minus 1,600 favorite, like on a card, unless it's like a title fight and that person has made their way up there and there's no one else to fight. Like, realistically, Umar should be fighting Song Yadong, right? Like, that would make more sense, I think. Nothing against Davison, but he's older. I'd be pretty shocked if Davison Figueroa won this weekend.
Yeah, I would be definitely more shocked, like you were saying, if he was able to get it done over. It's just to me the matchmaking thing to spin it to that. It's really like you said, they're shooting themselves in the foot. But I also feel like they're really like trying to be nitpicky with some of these potential stars up and coming, where they feel like. He's why am I blanking his name right now? But Nurmagomedov is so close to like being right there again. He was the closest one before Jan just beat him.
Yeah,
they in my eyes, it feels like they feel like he's the best one in the division, and they just want to give him not a layup, but essentially a layup to get right back to the spot where he was.
Although saying that if O'Malley wins, he's getting the next title shot. Like that's almost like a foregone conclusion. And they're going to sell it as, well, he beat Jan, even though that was a terrible decision a couple of years ago. I mean, Jan should have won that fight. Remember the decision that O'Malley got over Piotr Jan a couple of years back? Like, that's how they'll sell it. Oh, Jan's got to avenge the loss. Like, that's how they're going to do it. Even though O'Malley just fought for the title last year and got finished. But that doesn't matter, because nowadays it's just like, they're more about like what they think is more entertaining. It's kind of the reason that Lopez is getting the title shot, all these things, right? Like the UFC's, they're going more in an entertainment side of things, which I get, but I think it's gone a little bit too far in my opinion. There's fighters that should be like, we're not seeing the best fight the best. Like Arman Saryukin should be fighting for the title this weekend. He's not, because they're mad about all the stuff that happened last year. Understandable. I get it from the professional standpoint as well, but also, aren't we trying to find out who the best fighters are? Like realistically, Arman should be in that title fight this weekend, I think, So.
Yeah,
Speaking of title shots, bro, I got to ask your opinion. I saw a report earlier that said where Rose Namajunas said that if she gets her a dub this weekend, that she's next up for the title fight. What are your thoughts on her matchup and her having a potential title fight in the wings?
Well, again, this goes back to the entertainment era. They like Rose. Rose is a former champion. That's how they'll sell it. They'll probably even bring up the fact that Rose and Valentina, I think at one point trained a little bit together in Colorado. So like, they'll go that route. Like it doesn't matter anymore. Like nothing will surprise me after they did Diego Lopez and Volk. And again, I like Diego Lopez. Like the guy's super entertaining. He is coming off a great win over John Silva. My issue is he clearly lost last year against Volk. Like there's no planet that he should be getting a rematch this soon of a guy that, like, imagine being in Volk's shoes. Hey, we're going to keep you on the shelf for a little bit. Oh yeah. And you're going to fight the guy you already beat. Like, how does that make sense? Like, and you've got Lerone Murphy, who just knocked out Aaron Pico. You've got Movsar Evloev, who's
Lerone Murphy
Lopez.
Keeps getting dogged.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you have other contenders and they're so concerned about whether it'll be entertaining or not. Like, I don't know. Like, at some point we got to treat this a bit more like a sport and reward wins and losses. Otherwise, just get rid of the rankings and just, pick who, do a fan vote who wants to see fight, if that's how we're going to do it,
I feel like that's the most egregious part, especially in the Volk fight to me, is when you're talking about divisions that have legitimate contenders. It's one thing when you're like, all right, we're going to pull Patty to fight for the belt because, interesting circumstances, the belt's basically vacant without being vacant. So we got to, scrounge up a interim title fight. Totally makes sense. Like you said, there was a backstory between him and Ilya. So if you wanted to make that matchup, all right, sure, whatever. There isn't a, number one besides Arman, and they're doing this whole Arman doesn't deserve it because he headbutted Hooker and broke his back the week of the fight, or, they're basically, like you said, there's instances where it makes sense, but to me, the Volk one is the most like egregious.
That's the worst one in my opinion. Yeah, and
where it's like
for Volk too, like, cause you sort of alluded to it earlier, and let's just say the quiet part out loud. There's guys the UFC wants to win. Let's be honest. They're a business. They want Diego Lopez to be champion. He is Brazilian. He also represents Mexico. Those are two markets they go to on a regular basis. Volk's getting close to 40. Great, to me, it's like you got a guy who's been one of the greatest featherweights of all time. Let's treat him a little bit better than this. Like, to me, it really looks like they're trying to hope that Lopez knocks him out. And what happens if Volk wins? Like, he can win this fight. he goes out there and beats Lopez, like that's going to ruin everything for the UFC for their plans. And that's the thing. Like fans see right through it. So that's the issue there, is that people are getting annoyed with, because they're seeing the match, they're seeing how they're doing things now. It's like, again, I don't mind if like the odd time someone gets passed over because they're like, oh, this is a bigger draw, whatever. But it's just like, you got to, when there's, like you said, when there's contenders, it just looks so bad that they're just ignoring those fighters and then they're just going with someone else.
Well, I know we're short on time, so let me get a couple of your picks on these, man. Talk to me about, we'll start from the top and then work our way back. What are your thoughts on Gaethje and Patty? Can Patty get this job done?
Yes, I think he does. So this is what I look at. A couple things. That to me is one of the toughest fights to pick on the card, because Patty's striking defense is terrible. You look at the stats, I think it's like in the 40s or something. Like he gets hit a lot. So if Gaethje lands, it could be lights out for Patty. The thing I look at with Gaethje, though, hasn't fought that much. He's got, in his last 4 fights, he's fought the same guy twice. One of those was on short notice against Fiziev. But the 2 fights against Fiziev, he beat Fiziev the first time, then had the short notice fight the second time. He's taken, like, as much as Patty has bad striking defense, Gaethje's taken a lot of damage. He's over that 35 mark. That adds up too. And then I just look at the fact that the ground game is a bit questionable, right? Like, we don't know. Whereas Patty, we know he's got a good ground game. He's going to be faster. We've seen Gaethje slow down a little bit. So, I already told people this. I think if you're betting this fight, take Gaethje by knockout, take Patty by submission. It's probably going to end up either one of those ways there. I'm leaning more towards Patty because he's younger, been more active. And again, like, he's one of those guys who doesn't have much to lose. Like, Gaethje's coach basically came out and said this is going to be his last fight. So if Patty loses, big deal. He's young enough where he could, sort of, I know he's not that young, he's 31, but he could turn it around and, make some noise here. But with Gaethje, it's kind of all or nothing, because he'll miss out on so many big fights if he can't win this one, right? He missed out on Topuria. His manager was talking about McGregor. Like, there's a lot of stuff on the table here for Gaethje if he needs to win. But yeah, I'm going Patty late submission in that one, in the main event.
Corey, who you got?
I want to say Gaethje's going to be able to get it done just because of the cleaner boxing, the more fluent with his striking. One thing that really, my analytic brain, UFC posted the Patty versus Chandler fight as like a build up to this fight just like 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, something like that. I went back, watched it, it came across my YouTube. I'm like, why not? Man, I did not realize in the moment quite how, like you said, how deficient Patty looked in this striking in that fight. Like, he was winning at all points. So it was like, it was hard to kind of take points away from him in the moment, because during the fight, we were all kind of shocked whether or not he was even going to be competitive
up north
with
after
them.
Calling fights, and I remember us watching that together and being like, what the fuck am I watching right now? Like, I thought
he's able to, he's able to do it. Look at him, because we all thought it was like 50-50 whether or not he was even skilled enough, or whether the Scouser was going to sleep. And, there was the buildup of the fight in the moment. But now with, hindsight eyes watching back on the fight, there was huge striking deficiencies. Not only that, it felt like he was lunging forward with his strikes. He wasn't throwing with his feet planted. He wasn't actually, his 1-2s did not look clean. His boxing did not look clean. It looked very like, I'm going to strike all arms. And Gaethje's not the guy to do that against. I feel like last time he fought somebody like that, he put Tony Ferguson into a real bad place. That being said, I do agree with age catches up to all of us. We've seen it. Gaethje coming up. He might have got that victory in his last one, but it's real hard to forget about that Holloway fight. We've seen what can happen. I just feel like Patty's not, like you said, if he gets it done, it's more than likely submission or decision. But I feel like Gaethje's just going to outclass him in there, is what my heart of heart is telling me.
I'm hoping so, dude, because I want Gaethje to win on this one. I talk on the show all the time about momentum. I'm a big believer in that, whether that's sports or fighting or whatever we're talking. And we've seen that just in football, watching all the playoffs the last couple of weeks. Momentum has been such a thing in all of those games. So while I normally err on the side of momentum, I feel like those deficiencies that you spoke about with Patty in that fight really could catch up to him with Gaethje. And being a guy like Gaethje, something tells me that if this could be his last fight, like you say, that he's going to go out there trying to knock his block off. Either that means he's going to go out on his shield, however that looks, whether that's by submission or knockout or whatever, or he's knocking Patty out. To me, that's the only real way that I see this fight ending. I'm with you, Corey. I'm going Gaethje, but man, the momentum side of me says that Patty definitely could get this done.
One thing for me, I feel like Patty, though, has shown sizable improvements between fights. He doesn't fight every 3 months. He fights every 6, 9, almost year, it seems like at this point. And there's a noticeable difference between every version of him that we've seen. I feel like he hasn't just come up being the same guy. And I also noticed in the build to this fight, he actually kept himself in shape, took it a lot more serious. And I'm wondering how that affects the version of Patty that we see come Saturday night.
We're going to have to find out, dude. I'm looking forward to that. But, James, I can't let you get out of here without talking about what you got going on with our friends over at Cagee Titans. I mean, anybody that follows the show knows that we have been following Cagee Titans for a while, whether that be our guy Joe Penafiel or our guy Joe Giannetti, or hell, we started a fight at the weigh-ins when our guy Darius Sistel went over there to go fight Joe Giannetti. So, I shout out to Cagee Titans. I definitely would love to come out there and check out one of their cards. We are going to be wrapped up with the Clarissa Shields press conference for her and Franchon Cruz at the auto show this weekend. So make sure you guys stay tuned with that. But, dude, talk to me about Cagee Titans. What do you got cooking over there? What fights are you looking forward to?
Yeah, man, I got this really, really awesome gig, and it's through Spectation Sports, which you guys are familiar with, obviously, with Legends of Combat. And so I ended up getting linked up with Cagee Titans a couple of years ago, doing some post weigh-in shows just remotely, like here. And then they brought me on to fly me out to do their events, and I've done most of their events since then. I'm going to be heading out on Thursday. I got a long flight over here from Vancouver all the way to I'm going Vancouver, Toronto, Boston, and then I got to drive up to Plymouth for there. But it's cool, man. I get to do post weigh-in show. I get to do a pre-show. We do. The weather's not great for it now, but we did like a pre-show outside of the Plymouth Memorial Hall where all the people are lining up. So if you're getting in line to go see the fights, you'll see me out there talking to the fighters. We're doing like a pre-show, and then we do the post interviews as well. So after the fighters are done, and guys, I'm talking like not just like the pro fights, like the amateurs, everyone on the card, they have to talk to me at some point after they win their fights. So it's a lot of fun for me, guys, because I love being on the front lines. Like like you kind of referenced there, Cagee Titans puts on a hell of a show. Like it is the best way I can say it is it's an experience. It's not just like your typical run of the mill, we've been to all types of shows, right? But it is so different than anything I've experienced before. It's so well run. It's like a well-oiled machine. Everyone there, it's like, it's almost like the best way I can describe it, it's almost like a college football type atmosphere there. Like I like it. Like everyone's like, pro Cagee Titans. Everyone's there like having a good time. It's well run. The fighters are happy. Like it's super cool. So my job is I'm basically like I was telling you in our messages, I'll tell you the same joke here. It's like I'm the Megan O'Leary, but I'm not as good looking. So, I get to do all these cool things talking to the fighters. And for me, it's fun because you guys know this too. Like it's fun talking to the up and comers. Like fighters are happy to talk to me, but I'm excited to talk to, some of these guys that we could see in the UFC one day. So for me, it's so much fun. It's by far my favorite gig I get to do right now. Like the fact that I have someone, wanting to, fly me out and pay me to go, talk to fighters is just super cool. So I'll be doing that this weekend. And then we're going to be back in Boston for the next event at the MGM at the Fenway. That's going to be a huge event. It's going to be boxing. Dope. Joe Giannetti's on that card. So that's going to be boxing, MMA, a bit of everything. It's the first time they've gone to MGM at Fenway. So that's going to be a huge event. That's February 21st. And they're doing shows every couple months. So it's been such a fun ride. And I'm super grateful to Michael Polver and the whole crew over there for having me out because it's so much fun.
Hey, man, I got nothing but good things to say about Cagee Titan. Mike is the homie. I have been in multiple of their press conference and things like that. Mike, if you hear this, man, you know what time it is, bro. I hope you guys have a good card and all that good stuff. I got to come out there and check out one of these cards soon. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing the press conference for that. And then in February, we will be covering the Clarissa Shields fight that's going to be at Little Caesars, which I can already tell you, if you thought Rick Ross playing her out for the last one, make sure you guys come to Little Caesars. We've also got in the month of February, we also will be doing Mitten Muay Thai is making their return as well. I'll be back on the call for that one. Check that one out on millions.co. If you guys are watching on millions.co, do me a favor and go buy a t-shirt. Yeah, man, a lot of good stuff going down in the world of knockouts and 3 counts. And stay tuned for more with TNA, man. If you got anything else you want to plug, brother, the floor is yours.
No, I just want to, like I always say when I come on here, I love seeing you guys win. Every time I see one of your posts, you guys are out doing commentary, doing this and that. I love seeing it. I love that you guys are still passionate about the grassroots stuff. And Little Caesars Arena, by the way, one of my favorite arenas. I was at I told you this already. I was at the UFC card in Detroit when they had it way back in the day with you mentioned Gaethje. I can understand why you're a fan. You fought Eddie Alvarez on that card, right? If I remember correctly.
Correct.
That one. Yeah. And then Overeem had was a recipient of one of the worst knockouts we've ever seen.
That was fucking nasty.
Yeah, that was insane. That was a good card. That whole fight week was so much fun going, because I was living in Toronto at the time. I could just drive down. So it was really cool. But yeah, just Lynch on Sports, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, doing lots of fun stuff. I'm going to be going down to Seattle in end of March to cover that UFC card. I'm everywhere, man. So it's been a good time. And thanks again for having me on, guys. Always appreciate the invite.
Hey, man, always appreciate the time. Also, before I get out of here, make sure you check out our friends BKFC as they're getting ready for Knucklemania. We just had Joe Elmore on here. Make sure you stay tuned. A little birdie told me we might be talking to Mike Richmond soon. So make sure you go hit that button, hit that subscribe button. Check out our sponsors, Michigan Street Unlimited. Check out the Autorama. If you're in Detroit, I know you like cars. If you say you don't, you're a liar. Until next time and in the in-between time, hit that subscribe button. Peace.